Hello, and welcome to another presentation in our series of Supremus Group's Patient Awareness Briefs. Each one of these 15-minute sessions addresses a topic of direct importance to you as a consumer of healthcare services and explains an aspect of the regulations as they deal with how you should be informed and engaged in the care delivery process. Today's session is going to be about medical identity theft, what it is, how it can impact you, and what you need to do to protect yourself. So let's get started. Slide 2. So the first thing we're going to do in this session is we're going to talk about the year 2014 and how eventful a year that was. We're going to define what identity theft is, how it's done, the effect that it can have on you, and what sort of things you should be on the alert against so that you know if and when it's happening to you. Slide 3. The year 2014 was a very, very busy year indeed. From government, healthcare, and not-for-profits reporting breaches of all different types, including those from inside employees and accidental types, what we have is we have 6.6 million records in 109 different events that became known to the public. But in total, the record count was almost 10 times as high as that. 67 million records of all types from all sources in 2014. What we've learned from this is that healthcare and retail, as we found out with Target, Home Depot, Walmart, Lowe's, and others, is that healthcare and retail are known to be what we call easy or soft targets. This means that the security measures to protect privacy are often easier to penetrate by criminals than they would be for other areas. And what we are also finding is this is only promising to get worse, at least for a while. Given current trends, identity theft in healthcare and retail increased from 23% to 59% of all attacks in the time from 2013 to 2014. Slide 4. So this term identity theft, it gets bandied about a lot in the press. A lot of people we hear saying it. So what does this actually mean? Well, identity theft is probably just what you're thinking it is. It's a form of stealing someone's identity and then pretending to be that person in ways that allow you to gain access to resources or to obtain credit or other benefits in that person's name. And of course, that causes a hardship to that person whose identity has been stolen. It's any form of impersonation, including electronic, of one person by another for such purposes. The most common forms of this are financial identity theft, which is using another's identity to obtain credit, goods, services, loans, making purchases, and so on, or medical identity theft, which is using another person's identity to obtain medical care or drugs or other services. Slide 5. So how does someone actually perform this stealing of another person's identity? Well, it happens in ways that are a lot more common than you might think. It happens many times through electronic means, through email. On this slide, you see there are a number of different ways. Part of how people do it is to retrieve personal data from redundant IT equipment and other storage media, including personal computers, that haven't been cleared of this information properly, or by someone taking a memory device like a CD or a thumb drive with this information, and rather than destroying it, shredding it, or in some way clearing the information from it, they simply throw it away. It can be that they observe other users typing in their login credentials, such as credit card numbers, PIN codes, into IT equipment located in public places. These IT terminals or equipment include the point-of-sale card swipe stations, where you swipe your payment cards in the grocery store, an ATM machine at the bank, or any other place where people line up to get money or pay for services. This technique is called shoulder surfing, and it's literally looking over someone's shoulder to watch the motions their fingers are making. It can be stealing personal information from computers using breaches, internet browsers of all types, or using malware such as Trojan horses, as they're called, mimicking the idea of the Trojan horse from ancient history, logging the various keystrokes that you type in through things known as spyware. Malware, spyware, these terms refer to computer programs that are small and in ways, usually using email, they sneak in and install themselves on your computers, and they capture this information, keystrokes and screen images, without your knowledge, and they send them back to the person who sent that malware or spyware to your computer in the first place. Hacking, of course, gets a lot of press these days. The hacking of computer network systems and databases to obtain this kind of information. This is partly what happened at Target. This is what happened through Anthem, and then happened again at Primera not too long after the Anthem hacking attack. Many of these attacks were facilitated by the thing that I had mentioned before, the malware or the spyware, by information gathered through those little software programs. It can be that exploiting insiders and abusing the rights of privileged IT users. The trusted insiders that these two types of people are represented have privileged access to the IT. And by having privileged access, if their personal integrity can be compromised in some way, or, as was the case with Target, there's someone who was planted there by a criminal element, they can gain access and they can gain this information with relative ease. Many times you'll get emails from places or persons that you have never visited or solicited. This is a form of impersonation from trusted organizations in emails, or text messages, or phone calls, or other forms of communication. This is what is known as phishing, and that's phishing with a PH. These are the kinds of things that read or look like legitimate emails, maybe coming from your bank, maybe coming from a person claiming to be a legitimate person, offering you money, offering you access, offering you something in return for help. It may be an email that you receive looking like it's from your bank, and most big banks have had this happen to them, and these are hoaxes seeking to get you to respond to them and provide them the information needed to obtain money out of your bank account. And they will look exactly like the legitimate communications from your bank, but they ask questions that your bank will never ask you in email, only in person. Only once they have established that they're talking to the right person and that you are talking to the correct person at the legitimate bank. But they will never ask for this information from you in email. Browsing social networks. Facebook, MySpace, LinkedIn, all of these different social media networks contain a lot of information about a person. And many of the persons seeking to do identity theft will find these information resources. They'll learn what they need to learn, and then they'll take the next steps and go deeper and search for more information on a person whom they have targeted from what they have learned on Facebook or MySpace or LinkedIn or any of these other social networks. And they will do a thing called pretexting. They will contact you telling you that there is some reason that they're doing this. That is the pretext for their contact. And it will be of such a nature that it will encourage you or urge you to get in touch with them to find out more or to take the next step or whatever it is they're purporting as legitimate. But all the techniques that you see on this slide are in common usage on the internet every day. Before the internet, they were done by people that we used to know as con men or confidence tricksters. Now, the internet itself, because of the rather anonymous way that it does what it does, despite the fact that it's very useful and has a wealth of opportunities for very positive experiences, it also provides the criminal element, a new vehicle for pursuing their particular activities. Slide 6. So what do they do with this information? Once the information has been acquired, the identity thief uses it to become that individual. An awful lot of stuff can take place electronically over the web without anything more than an electronic identifier or data element to complete a transaction. There's no showing in person of a driver's license or a passport or any other form of identification. This electronic equivalent is accepted and they are able to get credit cards or file loan applications. They can purchase goods or services, usually over the internet, obtaining cash advances from ATM machines, or they can obtain medical services, medicines, they can file false claims, a whole variety of things, all of which boil down to a few simple things: obtaining money or obtaining services for things that they need. The huge breaches that have been publicized, I mentioned them earlier, Anthem, Primera, and a host of others, publicized the fact that the hackers that penetrated these companies obtained millions of records, and what will happen to these records is they will be parceled out and sold to criminal elements through various means. This is what is called the dark web. It's a form of black market that takes place in certain regions of the electronic network we know as the internet. And the persons who buy this information will then seek to exploit that information for further gains. Slide 8. Slide 7. So what does all this have in the way of an effect on you? The impact of identity theft can be devastating. It includes things like the loss of your credit standing. It can produce an empty bank account. It can produce the creation of false financial obligations, loans, or other applications that these identity thieves have filled out and left you, so to speak, holding the bag. It can cause a loss of benefits for health care, for insurance, and it can produce the possible legal troubles that go along with mistaken identity and these various things, because now suddenly the identity thief, the real thief, has made off with the money, the service, or whatever it is that they sought, and in leaving you holding the bag, you are now, in the eyes of those that this has been obtained from, you are legally obligated to pay for or are being held responsible for it. Because as far as the provider of that money or that service knows, it was legitimately you that obtained it. And so they're going to, in the absence of any other information, they're going to hold you responsible for it. And until proven otherwise, they're going to come after you to pay for it. And these are very serious legal troubles that can result. It can take anywhere from weeks to months, even before you discover that this has happened to you. And then it can take months to years to get it all correct, because you'll be expected to provide evidence to support your claims that none of this was you. This was all somebody else legitimately sticking you with the bill, stealing your identity, and obtaining these services masquerading as you. But they've made off with it, and you're stuck with the penalty. Slide 8. So what do you do about this? Well, you don't go live in a cave. You take positive action. There are red flags, indicators that things are not happening as they should, things that are going wrong, that you should be on alert for. Things that are like there are unexplained errors on your bank or payment card statements, purchases or deposits or withdrawals that have been made that don't belong there. Errors begin to appear on your credit report, which you should be looking at on a routine basis to make sure that it's not being accessed by parties who shouldn't. Your accounts get flagged for irregular activity. Various forms of fraud alerts are always going off because it looks like you're doing things that are not of your customary pattern. You start getting calls from debt collectors for debts that you yourself never incurred. Or your medical claims are being questioned or rejected. Medical claims for services or procedures or medicines which you never received, never sought out, never saw your provider to obtain. Adam Levine, the CEO of Identity Theft 911, was quoted as saying, "Everyone is a potential victim of identity theft. You can do everything right, shred, secure, watch who you talk to, and then if your name is found on the wrong database somewhere at the wrong time and by that wrong person, they will compromise that database and your identity can be stolen." So this can happen despite your best efforts. And that's what he's warning you against. You can do everything that you can do, and yet the criminal element can still succeed. Slide 9. So what do you do about all this? Well, as I said, you can't go off and live in a cave. What you can do is you can take positive action. Here are some things that you can do. First thing you should do is waste no time and take these following steps, and this is advice directly from the FTC, who is the primary government agency that responds to things like this. You need to contact the credit reporting companies, TransUnion, Equifax, Experian, and put fraud alerts on your credit reports so that anything that you identify as something that you yourself wouldn't do or something that's unusual gets flagged so that you'll get an alert. Get your free credit report whenever it's offered to you. You certainly should do it a number of times per year to make sure that what is happening on there is something that you're aware of. As they say, being forewarned is forearmed. And then you need to create an identity theft report by filing a complaint with the FTC in your local police department after you've learned that there may be possible irregular or fraudulent activity in these different areas of your credit. One of the things that you'll find is cleaning up things after the fact will be a lot of work. But it will be a far greater painful experience and much more difficult if you don't first take these steps. Your primary source of information for things like this would be the Federal Trade Commission. They have a very active and a very productive consumer protection activity that goes on to put together information like this to ensure that consumers are well and timely informed about the risks and corrective measures that you can take in these areas. Contacting the FTC for these information resources is the best advice you can get. Slide 10. So what are you going to do? As the patient, again, you are of central importance in managing your health care and its information. And as the patient, you have a great deal of control over it, this information. Those persons who seek to steal your medical information are very clever and use every trick to obtain it through people, computers, and any other means that they can. So you need to be on your guard, and you need to watch your credit history, your bills, and be alert whenever you use your payment cards, both in person and especially when online. Your providers are careful with your information, and they make sure that they know who they're giving it to before they give it. And you need to be just as careful as that. So, get informed and get involved. The information that we've been talking about in this series is about you. You need to know who has it and how it's used. If you have any questions, you have lots of information resources to go to. Ask your provider. For identity theft questions, ask the Federal Trade Commission. They'll be only too happy to provide you whatever you might need in the way of information to become better informed and more active in protecting yourself. Well, that concludes this session. Thank you for joining us.